Hello and welcome to this video on why only some trees go dormant during winter and why this is important. This is perhaps better typified by the way trees that go dormant behave in autumn. The change in leaf color and later drop. As a result, you can imagine that most, if not all, dormant trees are deciduous. Note though, nearly all trees during a winter period will go into some kind of dormancy. The first reason trees lose their leaves in autumn is for the same reason bears will gorge themselves in autumn, to conserve and store energy for the winter months. Deciduous trees pull resources from their leaves. This conserves energy in autumn, and this happens before they fall to the ground. It allows them to store them in their roots and remobilize them in spring for that first initial flush of growth. A lack of chlorophyll leads to the leaves losing their green coloration and turning red, yellow, or orange before falling off. This maximizes the tree's survivability in the adverse conditions of winter. That is just the first thing that happens. While that is one and perhaps the first reason, there are other important events that occur over the winter dormancy period. Some trees need dormancy for fruit set. This is related to the leaf buds, flower buds, and so on. Fruit trees, primarily temperate fruit trees, follow a pattern of growth, and that pattern of growth and behavior is needed for them to normally function. This is most apparent in spring and the early part of summer. As the day length, or more accurately the duration of light, and temperature decreases, the tree will begin to slow down its growth. These are the two factors that tell a tree when it needs to start focusing on conserving energy and moving towards dormancy. This change will cause the tree to release various hormones within itself, and these signal the end of the growing season. Once they are released, they create a positive feedback loop that will continue to tell the tree to keep entering into dormancy. These will eventually lead to a point in either late autumn or winter where the tree stops all unnecessary processes. This includes the release of those hormones. Once they are dormant, the tree will not grow. This inhibition will protect the tree. If a tree was allowed to grow as normal in winter, the temperatures would be much too cold and they would be damaged by frost or freezing conditions. For example, sap flowing through the tree, if it was not dormant, would expand as it freezes, and the living cambium within the tree bark would be destroyed. This would kill the tree. Fruit trees are particularly important when we look at this. If they don't undergo the necessary cold period to get into a dormant state, they may not begin to put on flower buds or leaf buds. Without these, you don't get fruit, and in fact you don't get leaves. Without adequate cold periods leading up to dormancy, it leads to deterioration of the tree's health. This causes a loss of leaf buds, a loss of flowers, or no flowers at all, and as a consequence, there is no production of fruit. Similar developments are needed for other varieties of tree. For instance, pine trees need to undergo a period of dormancy in order for the candles to be able to promote new growth and produce new pine needles. We've spoken a little bit about what happens to lead to dormancy, that primarily it's a response to the environment in which the tree takes cues from the environment, shorter days and less light, along with lower temperatures. Just the same way that humans were able to figure out that as the days grew shorter, winter was more pronounced and you were further into it. Plants can have the same fundamental understanding of the environment. Day length equals less access to light. The longer the day, the more light that is available. This also corresponds to temperature, although temperature is less significant a factor than day length is. The shorter nights allow the plant to recognize that the days are getting longer, and as such, it's entering into spring. This allows for the plant to come out of dormancy in response to the change, and it is these two extremes that it uses to judge when and how to interact with the environment and how. Just like we struggle with cold weather, plants are the same. If plants are actively growing during the winter, water in the trunk, stems and leaves will freeze. This is why deciduous trees will drop their leaves. They are a liability if kept on during winter. By having retracted the chlorophyll and any other salvageable material from the leaf before it is dropped in autumn, the tree can hold onto it and reuse it. If instead they stayed there, they would be damaged and most likely lost during winter as a result of cold. Further to that basic issue, there are others. We've already mentioned how the cambium and flowing sap could expand and cause the bark to become damaged, thereby destroying parts of the trunk of the tree. There's also a lack of sunlight for trees to use to photosynthesize and turn into usable sugars. The final factor is the scarcity of groundwater. Notably, most water the tree would have ready access to would be frozen. Because it's frozen, it can't collect enough water to survive. This is why the tree goes into dormancy. Just like a bear hibernates, it simply can't collect enough of what it needs over winter, and so it simply stops functioning for a time, or more accurately, minimizes its functioning for a time in order to survive. It's essential, and if plants didn't undergo dormancy, they would not be able to survive. As you can see, trees in your bonsai collection, garden, orchard and so on, need some period of rest and respite. While we haven't gone into great detail here on exactly what happens in the nodes, leaf buds and flower buds in winter, there are some relevant links in the description box below if you're so interested in reading into that. Importantly for bonsai, this process is why you cannot keep bonsai trees indoors all year round if they are deciduous or require a dormant period. You cannot force them to continue to grow for longer periods of time than nature allows, that there are practical, hard limitations on how long a tree can grow, that there are needs the tree must have met that aren't the more obvious and apparent things like water, nutrition, and so on. Dormancy is also needed for the trees to grow, as dormancy allows for buds, nodes, and so on to set and burst at the right time. Understanding this will allow you to better use the tree's development and its seasonality to get more out of it, and, in some ways, better care for your bonsai. Thank you for watching this video. If you have found it interesting, consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. Please post any comments, questions, or suggestions that you have below.